Hello class, this is your instructor, Miss Birchfield. In this mini lesson, we will look at simplifying, multiplying, and dividing rational expressions. The first part of this lesson is looking at what are called restrictions. But first, what is a rational expression? Well, a rational expression, remember rational is a fraction. So a rational expression is an algebraic fraction. So it's going to be a fraction that contains variables, and it's going to contain polynomials in the numerator and the denominator, where the denominator cannot be equal to 0. So a restriction is determining what value for your variable would make the denominator 0 if you had that number. So to find your restriction, you just take the denominator, set it equal to 0, and just solve the equation to get that number that will make the denominator to 0. So that number for this particular expression is 1/3. Just to kind of show you what we mean, if you took 1/3 and you were to substitute it into the expression in the bottom, here you would end up 3 times 1/3 is 1, and 1 minus 1 is 0. Remember, in a fraction, we can't have 0 in the denominator because it gives us something that is undefined. A fraction is undefined if it's over or 0 in the denominator. So a restriction, we're just going to, easy to find. You just take the denominator, set it to 0 to find the value for x. Well, this particular one we're going to factor. Instead of doing, I can review your x factor. What will multiply to -6 and will subtract to a -5? Well, that's going to be a -6 and a +1. So I'm going to factor out into x minus 6 and x plus 1 equal to 0. And then you take each factor, set each factor to 0, and then this will give us the number that is our restriction. So our restrictions here are 6 and -1. The second part of the lesson is simplifying rational expressions. To simplify this rational fraction, we will completely factor the numerator and the denominator and then just cancel anything that's common. So remember your factoring, remember your GCF, slip and slide, difference of two squares. Those are going to be the most popular of the factoring techniques. Well, the numerator, we have a GCF. So we can take out 4 and x, which would leave us with 1 minus 5x. Remember, to get that 1 minus 5x, we divide the 4x here into each term, and then this is what we get. So we're going to put it all over 4x. Notice that we can cancel these two now because they're the same, and that leaves us with our simplified expression. Here in the numerator, I'll do the slip and slide method again. And remember, slip and slide, you can just slip the 1 to the 7. So we're looking for factors of 7 that will add to 8, and that's going to be a +7 and a +1. So we can break it down. And then notice that the numerator and the denominator contains an x plus 1, so our simplified expression is an x plus 7. The third part of the lesson is multiplying rational expressions. So to multiply, remember the rule of multiplying fractions is to multiply the numerator together and multiply the denominator together. Before we do this, let's completely factor the numerator and the denominator, and then we're going to cancel any common factors that we have in common for the numerator or the denominator by cross canceling. So the numerator of the first fraction, we have a GCF. Our GCF is a 6, which is going to leave us with an x plus 1. Our denominator, we have an 8 that we can factor out, which leaves us with an x plus 2. We're going to multiply, and then we're going to factor the second fraction. And the numerator, we have a 2, and that's going to leave us with an x plus 2. And we have in our denominator, we've got two factors. We've got a GCF, so I can take out this 6 and then get an x squared minus 1. Then remember, whenever you've got GCFs, you always have to check to see if it'll factor anymore. Well, this here will factor. It's a difference of 2 squares. So it factors into conjugates into an x plus 1 and an x minus 1. Now we can start canceling. So what I'm going to do is see if I have anything that I can cancel in the numerator or the denominator. I'm going to cross cancel. This x plus 1 I can cancel with this x plus 1. This x plus 2 I can cancel with this x plus 2. And by the way, don't forget this. I forgot to bring my 6 down. I could cancel the 6's with one another or reduce them to a 1. And then I can do the same with this 2 and then divide it into 8 to get 4. So when we now have everything canceled out, I'm going to multiply the numerators out, which is 1, over the denominator, which is going to be 4, and then x minus 1. Our second example, we're going to factor out. Now I'm going to save some time. I can do the x method, but I'm just going to break it down without that to save some space. So the numerator, what will multiply to a negative 7 and then subtract to a negative 6? That's going to be x minus 7 and an x plus 1. Here in the denominator, I'm going to take out this GCF first. And then I'm going to break that difference of 2 squares down into an x plus 7 and an x minus 7. Bring my multiplication down. And then what will multiply to 49 and add to 14? I've got an x plus 7 and an x plus 7. And then down at the bottom, I've noticed I could do slip and slide, but I've noticed I've got a common factor. I've got a GCF. I'm going to take out this 4 first and get x squared plus 8x plus 7. Now break the 7 down, and what will add to 8? So I'll get 4 in front. So it would be x plus 7 and an x plus 1. So what we're going to do now is you can cross cancel. You can, if you have something in the numerator and the denominator of the same fraction, you can cross those out, which is what I'm going to do first. I'm going to cross out these x minus 7. And then I'm going to go over now and I'm going to cross cancel this x plus 1 with this x plus 1. Then down in the denominator of this first fraction, this x plus 7, I can cross out with 1 of the x plus 7. So I can only cancel out pairs. So I can't, once I've canceled those two, I can't cross out with these two. So I'm going to cancel these two from the numerator and the denominator. And then all that's left in the numerator is 1. And then in the denominator, I'm going to multiply 2 and 4 to get 8. So that's our final product, is 1 over 8. In this last example, or last part, we're dividing. Dividing is very similar to multiplication. It's just remember the rules of fractions. When you're dividing a fraction, remember you keep the first one, you change to multiplication, and then you do the reciprocal of the second one. Remember that old saying, keep, change, flip. So I'm going to factor and do the keep, change, flip step all at once. So what will multiply to negative 16 and subtract to a negative 6? Well, that's going to be x minus 8 and an x plus 2. In the denominator, I'm going to take out this GCF first. And then I'm going to factor this, so that's going to be 2, and then x plus 8 and x minus 8. I'm going to change to multiplication. Then I'm going to move the numerator down, and I'm going to factor it. What will multiply to 16 and add to 10? X plus 8, x plus 2, And then now I'm going to take the denominator and move it up. What to multiply to 64 and add to 16. That's going to be x plus 8 and x plus 8. Now we can start canceling out. So I'm going to start with the numerator and the denominator. Then I'm going to cancel this x plus 2 with this x plus 2. I can come down and cancel my x plus 8 with one of these x plus 8. And then I can cancel this x plus 8 with the denominator x plus 8. And then that's going to leave us in the numerator with the 1 over in the denominator 2. Well, I hope this mini lesson was helpful. If you have any questions, please let me know.